to thank all of you for coming to this seminar weekend. I know that a lot of you had formidable challenges. It is not easy stopping your life and making concessions and considerations to leave work and find babysitting and find someone to watch your pets and all of the things that you have to do to be present at something like this. However, it is duly noted that your efforts, sacrifices, and compromises have gone into the construct of doing something formidable with the benefit of what it is that you have received this entire weekend, be it you were at AGA, Ultranahata, or just Dominion yesterday. You are in the future. Once all of these segments start hitting, some of them are going to punctuate more than others. A lot of people don't understand why Galighticus videos are not viral. The content of the videos from the very beginning have been coated with things that are above the radar of perception for people who are highly functional with the human default program. It goes right over their heads. And I don't use clickbait. And there are certain things that I avoid doing because I want to remain truthful and authentic to what it is that we represent to the best that I can. I don't want to compromise or capitulate just to get numbers. I want it to be authentic and organic. I want people to come to Galighticus because they see something of merit and value and something that they could institute in their lives, not because I put a picture of Scarlett or Cardi B or something like that. The reason that you guys are in the future is because eventually people will see these and they will wonder why they weren't present and why this did not come across their radar. You are highly advanced in terms of not only knowing about what Galighticus teaches, most of you are on the art. A lot of people cannot fathom the reality outside of their five senses. The inclination that there's something probable out there, the closest that they get to considering it is going to a DC movie or an MCU movie. And that's the closest that they will come until they make some type of conscious step to grow. And some people don't even know that it is something that they're supposed to do. So again, you guys are very advanced. When I look at videos of bebop music, jazz music, or the early rock and roll music that started in the late 40s and the early 50s, these people were creating a genre. They were creating something that had never been done before sonically. And they all basically are the godfathers of a lot of the musical styles that are alive today. There were young communities of musicians that would get together and play this music and experiment with certain things. Those things that they were doing and experimenting with are still the standard for what musicality is. There was an I Love Lucy show. That show set up the 3-camera system. There was an overhead camera and 1, 2, 3 other cameras. Desi Arnaz was someone who was astute enough to put that together. Almost 70 years later, we're still using the model that he set forth in motion. How many of you saw the Superman movie with Christopher Reeves from 1977? That's one of my favorite movies. I saw it as a kid. There was something about that movie that struck me on a very deep level. Now I know why. When you go back to the backstory of the making of that particular movie, there was a guy named Dick Donner who also did the Lethal Weapon movies, which also are some of my favorite movies because I realized that whenever I watch his movies, I'm looking at a high level of mastery. Dick Donner as the director, they were doing 2 movies at the same time. They started in 1976. But let me take you back to the very beginning of the movie. When an actor goes for a movie, when they start the casting process of who it is that's going to be employed in the movie as actors, they have to put out a casting call. All of the actors who fit the bill, of which there were about 400 people that wanted to be Superman. Robert Redford was one of them. Burt Reynolds, he thought he could be Superman if he shaved his mustache. And lots of people during that time went in there. Christopher Reeve's picture was always at the top of the pile. The casting director put it there. He said, I think this is the guy. The process is the casting director has to have clearance from the executive producer and the producers, and they kept taking Christopher Reeve's picture and putting it at the bottom of the pile. So that went on. They went in, they did screen tests, they did all types of chemistry tests, they did auditions, they did cold readings for 400 actors. 3 times Christopher Reeve's picture went to the bottom of the pile. One day, they said, we can't find anybody. So the casting director said, listen, I told you, this guy, Christopher Reeves, is the one. Alexander Salkind dumped a lot of money into Superman at the time. The movie was so innovative, they had to figure out a way to make Christopher Reeve fly through the air convincingly. It was very uncomfortable to him because they had to innovate things that had never ever been done before. There were about 6, 7, 8, 9 different innovations that had never been done by Ilya Kazan or any of the people who had really marshaled filmmaking and film noir. He had to figure out a way to hire the best people to put together and synergize the talents of what was possible to make this story believable, right? Christopher Reeve basically was put at the top of the list, finally auditioned. When he went in for the audition and he did his thing, they were like, oh, okay, bring him back. Let's bring him in with Margot Kidder. He killed it. So he got the role. Now they had another conundrum. They had to beef him up because he was a little thin. They had to make him fill out the suit. So he started eating 4 or 5 times a day. He had to gain weight. He had to start working out. He eventually filled out the suit. This was before prosthetics and CGI and all of that stuff. He was a consummate actor. Now, my question to you is, how many of you saw the movie and were moved to tears more than once, if you recollect that? I was too. I would give you guys a homework assignment to look at that movie, study it, because there's a lot of mythology in the movie. There's also another movie, remember they did 2 at the same time. So you remember with Marlon Brando, remember that scene that he had when he was on Krypton? Did any of you guys remember that scene? There was a scene that I had in there that I think I retired from one of the seminars. It goes back to the technology of other worlds. I think they reiterated it with Henry Cavill and they went into it. When they packed Kal-El inside of the pod, they were able to bring an entire codex of things that had come from that world. He was able to interface with the hologram of his father, even though his father had moved on 30 years prior, but his father was able to actively engage, was way ahead of its time. Superman knew that he was trying to solve the problems of the world, so he had to go to the Fortress of Solitude, when he went, which is his altar, to connect with his ancestors, his father. He's talking to his father about mortal men.
I don't know what to say, Father. I'm afraid I just got carried away.
I anticipated this, my son.
You couldn't have. You couldn't have imagined.
How good it felt. You are revealed to the world. Very well. So be it. But you still must keep your secret identity.
Why?
The reasons are 2. First, you cannot serve humanity 28 hours a day.
24.
Or 24, as it is in Earth time. Your help would be called for endlessly, even for those tasks that human beings could solve themselves. It is their habit to abuse their resources in such a way. At this very moment, I could embrace you in my arms. My son.
My favorite movies. The reason that when I studied the works of Robert Moses, who was the architect, engineer for the World Trade Center, when it was built, they also had to institute many innovations in order to facilitate things that had never been done to erect the world's largest towers. I remember when those towers were built and how proud I was to be from New York because we had the Twin Towers. It wasn't the Burj Khalifa, the Chicago building and the tower. It was the Twin Towers in New York City. So I learned that I gravitate towards innovation. Earth, Wind, and Fire also is a very innovative group. There are 4 things that Maurice White did that nobody had ever done before sonically, which is the reason why Earth, Wind, and Fire is the #1 group of all time. Wutang are innovative. What RZA did as the abbot of 9 alpha males in the group had never been done before. When I traveled the world with them, I look at audiences of 30,000 people. I just sit back and watch from the stage. Then I'll make my way up to the highest part of the nosebleed seats, watch parts of the show from there, and film the energy of the people that are just wishing they could be closer to the stage. They don't understand the language, but they understand the energy of the songs and what RZA put into the 36 Chamber album 30 years ago. I was there when that album was being produced. I saw the sacrifice that RZA made by locking himself in the basement for months. He didn't bathe, he didn't do anything. He was like a caveman. He was like, these sounds, I gotta put it together. He committed himself fully to the process of giving birth to something that had never been, say it with me, done before. Innovation, people, right? So when you innovate, You take all of the process of your common sense, your knowledge throughout life. I don't care how young you are. If you're 12 years old, there's knowledge there. There should be some budding wisdom there. You take the coalescence of everything that you know, the polish, the character, the know-how, and the synergy, and you put it all together with the last essence of what will give birth to it, and that is intention. If all of those things come together the way that they should, there will be a divine spark added to that. Once that divine spark is added to all of those elements, it will create something that is timeless, that can never be destroyed, that will live on beyond you far past the time that your body has expired. You guys have to start thinking in that manner if you're going to be dynamic on this planet, because if you keep being remedial and accepting bad behavior, bad relationships, you keep tolerating smallness in people, and you don't insist on people being better that are around you, you cannot make an impact on your environment, your family, or your loved ones, or garner respect for anything, because you're not doing it yourself in your own world and in your own lives. So let's get back to innovation. Christopher Reeve does this movie. I could count about at least 7 moments that I can identify when I watch that titillate me. It's spellbinding. It's captivating. You have a sense that you're watching something that is beholden to something that just doesn't have an explanation. This is the energy that innovation produces. I'm bringing that to your attention because Galighticus is an innovation in things that a lot of people are not going to get. My hopeful desire is that we can expedite the process and make it a little bit faster for people to recognize what it is that we're doing, but we are innovative because we're giving energies that belong to the gods. Joel Osteen and T.D. Jakes are not giving energies to people, and they're not authorized and cannot give divine energies to people. The Dalai Lama gives his personal egoic blessing to people and little boys and makes them suck on his lip. He did that to show you who he really is. That was not a fluke, people. It was also a litmus test to see what the response would be on the planet to his action. Because if that is gauged, that the Dalai Lama can get away with doing that, and there wasn't a major groundswell and questioning, we need an account of that. How you are in this office and you think it's okay to make a little boy suck your lip and laugh about it.
The Dalai Lama is apologizing for what he calls a playful moment, and we want to warn you that the details of what you're about to hear here might be considered graphic. The exchange involved the Tibetan spiritual leader kissing a young boy on the lips, and at one point he reportedly asked the child to suck on his tongue, which he stuck out. This is not video of that incident.
That's going to make the Vatican more emboldened. It's going to excuse away what the priests have been doing for a very long time. It's also going to bring out pedophiles and people who are warped sexually. And what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, the Dalai Lama did it. It's fine. You guys didn't say anything about it. So why can't we do it? Right now, there is a major swelling of indecency that's happening in music and sexuality, and it's really flagrant. I abhor it personally. Indecency is something that is across the board. So I want you guys to give a little bit more consideration about what all of these things are. But let's bring it back to innovation. The reason that you are in the future is because your radar and your antennas were astute enough to pick up something that is beyond the capability of most people to understand the gravity of. Do you guys understand that? When you look at civilizations that have lived on this planet, walked on this planet, and the gods actually were the ones who, after they left, they created a way for those people that they knew were their devotees, bodhisattvas, their appointed ones, disciples and apostles, followers, students, adepts, and initiates, to come out of the arrangement of what this planet represents. So I don't care if you watch A&E, Ancient Aliens, and a lot of these other shows, they tell you about civilizations, enclaves of people that just winked out. They left their toys behind the clothes. There were no bones though, but it's almost as if these people completely disappeared. And I've been pointing that dynamic out to you guys for 10 years to get you to understand that there's a real good reason for that. The sum total of what you talk to me about, the inboxes that I get, the phone calls, it forms the basis of what it is that I teach about. I would never point out a problem without giving you an anecdote to solve it. In order to make a difference on the planet, how do you do this? How can you innovate? You have to be polished enough, evolved enough, concerned enough, knowledgeable enough to put all of those things together, and then you have to have a divine spark. And the divine spark, how does that happen, Tree Master Gandalf? Because, you know, RZA doesn't know anything about divine parents. And Maurice White, I saw the Egypt things on there, but I don't think he was a high priest. And, you know, Alexander Salkind, who did Superman, and Dick Downer and all of them, they didn't know anything about divine parents. But it didn't matter. They still had a divine spark added to the intention of what it is that they achieved, and the outcome of their achievement still lives today. 50 years later, 60 years later, I'm showing you a pattern and a continuity of something so that you don't have to think that, well, if the person is not a Galactican, how is it that? It's not about that. It's about you synergizing all of the things in your efforts to do that. And I'm showing you how it's done without Galighticus, how it always has been done. The reason that I say that is because you are Galighticus and you have a lot more going for yourselves than these 4 innovative people that I've been telling you about and their accomplishments without conscious divinity connected to it. Imagine what's possible for you to do with the divinity that you've learned about. But you have to get on with the process of getting your lives in order and together and insisting on excellence. Perfection is a distant concept that I don't know if I could achieve that. But it's worth trying though. If you do try it, operative word, you'll still be better off than most people around you who don't want to be perfect. Okay, so let's say not perfect, but striving for excellent. Excelling past the point of this is good enough. Like Rosina all the time, she's like, okay, this isn't good enough. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna stay here all night and XYZ and Tom and Jeffrey help. And I love you guys for that because they're putting excellence into what it is that they do, which is why I keep them close to me. Because other people are like, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. It is what it is. That is what continues to fail our planet, that particular thinking and attitude. Whereas if you're willing to sacrifice and go beyond, what you will find there at the apex of the beyond is there's nobody else around. But you could be an example for the other people down here and pull them up with you and they could follow your example in the bar that you've set. I'm inviting you guys to challenge yourselves and think a little bit past, deeper and above what you've been settling for. Go past it. If you don't want to strive for perfection, then strive for excellence. It is possible. It doesn't matter what people think about you. Well, I don't want people to think that I'm being arrogant or I think I'm better than them. Or why do you care what people think about you? It is irrelevant. They don't have a hell to stick you in. They don't have a law book to persecute you by. It is important for you guys to start measuring up and living up to the requirement of why your ancestors placed their hopes and dreams and desires within you. It's not a coincidence. So the word of the day is innovation. Begins with an I. The next letter is in. Ovation. Something that is worth a ovation. And I've seen it. And one of the reasons why I make it my business to go around the world and see things, because I'm studying and looking at the climate of what's going on the planet, and I'm preparing something for Galighticus to step into. I have very big plans for our movement, and however long it takes, it will be achieved. I am thinking about going back into the industry as an actor, but it would be for a very different reason. It wouldn't be for the fame and the fortune. It would strictly be to bring the people who follow what I do as an actor possibly into Galighticus, because people need to see light and they need to have an example of it. When you see me hanging out with certain people, I'm starting to make my way back into the industry that I left 20 years ago, because I realized that in order to make a larger impact, I may have to, and I use this word facetiously, years ago. The same way that it pimps its people. So hopefully you have enough energy to keep you full and lit until the next time we meet. I hope that you guys have great notes, great pictures, great memories, and refer to it. Make yourselves better in the process.
Sent from heaven. Now you can wait your whole life wondering when it's gonna come or where it's been. You may have got your heart broken a few times in the past. It never lasts as strong as